Hey everybody, this is What Is If It's Cool, and I just stuffed up the intro because I just can't speak. But we can't do an intro like this if we don't make a joke like this. So let's see how this plans out. This is What If It's Cool. You give us your time and we'll talk about anything and everything that is cool in the world today. Man, that's such a lame joke. I'm sorry, guys. I thought it was going to be funny, but it just didn't sound that good.
You know what? I reckon between you stuffing up the title of this podcast and then that music blaring into your microphone, producer Ziggy's going to kick our asses and he's just going to cut that entirely out.
Yeah, well, starting off, we'd like to thank our producer Ziggy for doing everything that he does for us. We probably give him a lot of hell when we do stuff like that, so sorry, Ziggs, if you're listening. So today we are talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. We're talking about the Robocop series, in particular the 1987 Paul Haven classic and the 2014 reboot. So we're just going to start with the original first with Paul Van Hoven. What were you guys' first impressions of it when you first saw it?
Watched it, yeah, a bit of deja vu. Watched it, and it was something I've never seen before. I think it was funny because of the satire and the excess of the 80s, and the violence was also, it got me really pumped as well.
Yeah, I'm like roughly the same. I remember watching it as a kid, so it would have been about 6 or so, and incredibly cool sci-fi character to see on TV as it was. Yeah, like it was incredibly violent. And as a kid, I still remember not really being particularly fazed by it, but yeah, there were like certainly some bits that were quite shocking. Like this recent viewing, checking it out again after so many years, because I haven't seen the original in such a long time. Yeah, I still really, really enjoyed it and probably have an even greater appreciation for it now.
Well, for me, I was a little bit younger than both of you. I was actually about 4 years old when I first watched it. I don't know if it's a Filipino-Irish thing that our parents just didn't give a crap what we watched, but just like, that's a movie that you wouldn't let a 4-year-old watch. But I just remember it was combining my two loves, action and robots. I used to really love robots growing up, and I just when you add Robo to a cop, robot with the action like that, especially the warehouse scene, like that's, whenever I think of Robocop, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, and it's fantastic.
No, definitely agree.
Yeah, but when it comes to the storyline wise, obviously it's quite simple. Guy, as a cop, gets killed, resurrected, blah 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 blah. What did you guys think of the storyline?
It reminds me of the classic revenge movies in a lot of ways. I mean, looking back at it, there's almost a hint of Death Wish in the sense that he got killed by these gangsters, and then over a period of time, when he finds himself, he takes revenge to kill those characters. I think in terms of the story, it was pretty basic, but then at the same time, it really resonated with me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they really don't mess around with the story. I mean, Alex Murphy gets introduced and promptly killed off in truly gory fashion, and it's such a brutal death scene. And
wait till you see the director's cut of that. That whole scene is brutal.
Well, champ, that's the version that I did watch the other night. I couldn't find the theatrical edition that you'd requested, but yeah, they completely crucify this guy, and it's such a slow, painful death by gunfire. I mean, losing the hand, losing the arm. Then he gets quite possibly an entire military unit's worth of ammunition unloaded into him,
and then some.
And then there's the coup de grace with Kirkwood Smith's Clarence Boddicker shooting him right through the head.
Yeah, it's a hard scene to watch, but
Just the look on your face right now, Dan, it looks like you're really enjoying that description. That was just beautiful, beautiful violence.
What can I say? I love violence. No, I'm joking. I've just come so accepting of that scene. I think as I watched it since I was young, so it doesn't really faze me. But I remember when I saw the director's cut for the first time, I just the moment his arm gets shot off, that's like, whoa! You know.
I've had multiple notes throughout my viewing of it, and all I could think was how many squibs did they use for each and every single death scene? And I have to think that they would have broken some kind of record for amount of squibs used.
Especially that scene when Omnicorp with the employee guy gets mowed down by.
You mean OCP? Omnicorp's in the remake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
It's okay. If we're going to do this show, we're going to do it right.
Yeah, Ben, if we're going to talk about this, we need to get this shit right.
Get your shit together.
There's no sloppiness allowed on this.
Exactly. Or else we'll do another retake.
But the Ed 209 scene, oh man,
Yeah.
like I didn't say this before, but I'm going to say it now. One of my biggest fears of ever taking a corporate job was actually because of that scene. Till I was probably about 20 when I started working in an office. You know, I actually was terrified to step into office because of that. Deep down in my mind, I always thought I was, going to go into a room and then all of a sudden an Ed 209 was going to be there. Don't know why, but oh man. That scarred me, that whole scene.
Well, Ed 209, I mean, he absolutely mauls Mr. Kinney. How scary was the voice? The voice I thought was incredibly intimidating.
The roar is probably the more scary bit for me. You know, when he drops the gun and it also goes, you now have 10 seconds to comply. Like, I think just that roar, that's more scary than the actual voice for me. Don't know about you guys.
I think it's a combination of that, but I think Ben, you've touched on this before, and we were chatting. You said the claymation was something that really stood out for you.
Yeah, the whole stop animation thing that they had going on. I think because the movement's just so stilted, it just looks really terrifying. It just has little bits of the original Terminator there, where the movement is just very robotic. Yeah, there's just something very surreal about it as they move that makes it really creepy.
I think we need to bring up Lewis, actually. Lewis is, for an 80s movie where a lot of female leads are just damsels in distress, I thought she had a really cool and effective introduction.
Yeah.
Just the way that she's shown, beating the hell out of someone that she's just arrested. I thought that was a very cool thing for them to present.
Did they ever have any sort of female characters like that in movies at that point?
The only one that I can really think of, that springs to mind right now, would be Marion, the love interest in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. Oh, that Conan is the only one that sticks out for me, but that was in the 70s, though, I think. Or was it the 80s as well?
No, I think Conan was still 80s.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, because
Probably had some femme fatale characters.
Yeah. But what's funny, because you said that Nancy Ellen, who plays Officer Lewis, she was only known at that point for playing la-di-da sort of, girls like that. And then this was complete 180, and it single-handedly changed her career path. Because she was always just playing the sweet little wholesome girls, and now all of a sudden she's a complete badass.
I read somewhere that in portraying Lewis's character, it was quite intentional on their part to make her appear quite gender neutral. But just my impression watching the movie, I was just like, this girl's awesome. She's able to take care of business. There's a bit of one-upmanship between her and Murphy. I just thought she was a really good foil at that point, because it just, it could have been any sort of buddy cop type movie situation. But then, of course, things just veer into sci-fi and almost body horror type stuff once the storyline really gets underway into turning Alex Murphy into Robocop.
Yeah, she's such a great character. Well, that leads us to the next bit, like with characters. Like for me, one of the standout characters, and it's kind of bad now because I only ever see him as this character now, and every time I watch this, I just wanted to say dumbass. Cronus Bodica, played by Kurtwood Smith. What a villain he plays.
So slimy, really,
So
really
sleazy.
creepy.
Oh,
yeah.
speaking of creepiness, you want a little bit of trivia?
All right, lay it on us, mate.
Okay.
I don't think we've heard this.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's not seen the movie, there's a scene where Cronus Bodica goes into Dick Jones's office and he's talking to the receptionist, and he's completely sleazy. He's like, oh, well, after this, I can have a bit of free time. I hope you can, maybe you can fit me in. And turns out that girl who is the lady who's playing the secretary is actually Kurtwood Smith's wife, and that's actually how they met. Was on the set.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Still married to this day?
Yeah.
Very cool.
But that's just creepy. Like you meet on set and you play, and you're playing opposite to a guy who's just being a complete sleaze. So
I think that's why the actors, man.
yeah.
I'm sure he's a good guy.
Well,
I want to grab a beer. I want to grab a beer with him after watching this.
I just want to have life lessons with that guy. Like, he just seems like the guy you want to talk to about life after watching that 70s show.
He seems very accepting and welcoming to everyone.
Until you piss him off.
Yeah.
Oh, that bit where he puts the just in that interaction with the receptionist, in real life, his future wife. I love how he put the gum on her sign.
Yeah.
After that, he walks in, he just blows her a kiss.
I never noticed that. I didn't realize. All I remember from that scene, Auntie Dottie goes, "You can keep the gun," and that's it. I'll have to rewatch it again and see.
Well, he goes through the door, and then after that, he turns around to look at her, and then he blows a kiss at her. Yeah. Take pickup tips from this dude.
Oh man! But the gang itself is they clearly had a lot of chemistry at the gang, don't you think?
Yeah, like they had such a camaraderie, I guess, to them. Like they're all scumbags, but they rejoiced in it. And I think they really nailed that presentation down. Just uniformly unlikable,
And I think everyone, you can definitely feel the camaraderie. And I liked when they first get those big guns and the guy just managed to get out of prison and he steals that SUX 6000, I think it was.
Yeah, that's it.
And then he was bragging about it, and they ended up blowing it up. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of just some frat boys doing their thing. But then also at the same time, like what Tim said, you just really hated those guys, and you kind of celebrated the fact that when each one of them just dies one by one near the end.
There's a great visual gag when Lewis and Murphy they've located these dudes after they've stolen some cash. They decide to go into the warehouse, but then Lewis and Murphy split up, and then Lewis finds one of the gang members and he's taking a piss. And then when she makes her presence known, you see the camera just show the stream suddenly stop. And I lost it as soon as I saw that.
But she does the pop. She does a pop of her bubble gum, and then that's when it stops. Did you notice that?
Yes, that was it.
But
just
my aunt there,
awesome comedy.
My aunt there, was watching it with me, and she loves this movie too. But the one thing she always complains about that scene is, when he says, "Do you mind if I sit this up?" And then she just looks at it and why did she have to have a look? That was her biggest mistake.
Well, I don't know what to say to that, man. All right. Are you trying to call me out here? Or are you trying to get me to take?
I don't know. Here? I don't know.
I'm not touching that, buddy.
I'm not
Go
trying to
on,
see
man,
that.
move it along.
Okay.
Move it along from here. We've got to recover somehow.
Okay. Biggest characters we haven't really talked about. Firstly, the Office. So we got Johnson, we got Morton, we got Dick Jones, and obviously the Old Man. I think all of them played their roles very well. Like the Old Man, it's a mystery whether he's good or bad. You know, because like obviously he's a corporate guy and he's running OCP. But like you look at Dick Jones, he looks like he's got it all together, but clearly he doesn't care about anybody. Because when Kenny gets destroyed by Ed 209, he's like, it's all right, don't worry, I'm sure it's a glitch. And then the other two, after the meeting's over, they go into the elevator and like, oh shame about Kenny, and they're like, oh yeah, whatever, like, gee.
Yeah, no, well, I mean that's taking off the whole culture of working, in big business back then in the 80s. It's a real dog eat dog world, and where you see opportunity, you take it, no matter who you step on. I think that was probably some really good social commentary on that particular aspect of the 80s. Yeah, but when we were talking about the scene, like when when Alex Murphy first gets killed, I was doing a bit of research, and one of the things that I chanced upon was that it was quite intentional the way that they did that, where it looked like he was being absolutely crucified. The intentional thing there was that they wanted to make it have a very sort of Christian appearance, like where like the Christ-like figure gets crucified by the villains. As a kid, like watching that, I found it incredibly sad that the hero was just getting tortured to death. And then it's echoed again towards the end, like where after unsuccessfully trying to apprehend Dick Jones because of the previously unknown fourth directive, he then gets cornered in the garage by police, and then they just keep going to town on him, shooting him while trying to apprehend him. And I just thought that was like even in my notes, I took that down. I just said, this looks alarmingly like they were trying to portray Christ getting crucified. And I thought it was pretty interesting choice on part of the director and the creators.
Yeah, but those two scenes, like, you went from extremely brutal to just like you feel really sad, especially when Robocop gets destroyed by the people he works with. Like that's when I got upset watching that bit. But it just shows you what film can do, and like what this movie is about. It's like it wasn't just about the ultra violence. It was about the story of the hero, dying and being resurrected. In this case, twice. And
it's like super. Like it really knew how to provoke emotion, and like how's that? Like you feel it twice. Like once for the human character getting killed, but then also for the being that he's become. The Robocop, you start feeling emotion for that. And I was like, I felt the same as a kid. And again, like, feeling that as an adult, I was like, that's pretty powerful, like a movie that would make you feel emotions like that, even though it's such a bizarre concept.
And lastly, the most important character we haven't even talked about, Peter Weller, as Robocop and Alex Murphy. Like, the guy, for me, perfect. It's the perfect role. Like, he got it. Like he moved like a robot. He talked like a robot. But then when he was human, he was just absolutely genuine. There's no role that he's done since that just for me is more iconic. I'm sorry, he's done some other good movies. Just that whole bit there, just fantastic.
I don't think there was any moment wasted in his performance. He was somewhat affable as a human, but he conveyed so much emotion as Robocop. Like it's just such a magnificent performance. The only other person that I can recall doing that much character work while their most of their face is obscured is Carl Urban in Dread.
That is true.
Another great,
also a good movie.
You get so much emotion out of Carl Urban in that movie. He doesn't even take his mask off once, and for the majority of this particular movie, Weller's face is obscured. But even when they take off his mask, like he and Lewis are hiding out in that abandoned area. just there was so much conveyed just by him like doing subtle things. I mean, it's obviously a lot of stuff that goes together to make a scene like that work, but he's removed his mask. You see like this almost like body horror type thing where it's like his face has literally just been stapled onto this cyborg body. And he asks about his former family from when he was still alive. He's told that his wife has moved on. And yeah, he just asks to be left alone, and you just can't help but feel overwhelmingly sad for RoboCop at that point.
Yeah, is that whole scene, just the emotion, like you're saying, just the emotions that goes with it. But it's just like, that one line goes, I can feel them, but I can't remember them. I just like that. Just like the heart.
Yeah, it's haunting. Yeah, and you just get the feels as soon as you see that.
Well, one thing we haven't mentioned about it is obviously there was a lot of ads in between it, which was taking a piss out of a lot of issues that were going on in America, if not the world at the time. And some of them, it still resonates now. Like, what was like one of those ads that sort of like stuck out for you guys?
The car, the SU6000, just, everything is just big and massive. It just talks about the excess of the 80s at that time.
Yeah.
I'll give the other one to you too.
I actually really, really like the family playing the board game.
That's my one, so I like that one. Get them before they get you.
It's like red alert, red alert, red alert. Like they had a few. They had like each family member had a choice line. I took down a couple of like, you crossed my line of death, or Pakistan is threatening my border. A lot lines that like a family unit are saying while they're playing this game. It just cracked me up. I was like, oh, I loved how this is supposed to be like. Well, obviously it's thinking about like issues that were happening at the time, but they took an ad that you would use for something like Battleship, and then they just started applying real world things to it. It was so good.
that one's just freaky because like it's just that tagline, get them before they get you. It's still that's still a line that's still happening right now. Like people still think if you do this to me, I'm gonna have to do it to you, or let's get in there before they do that. It's just that's a scary thought that a movie from the 80s is and what's 30 years later. That stuff is still going on. Yeah, the creators did say that a lot of their work in this movie, they were amazed at like how the themes that they brought up are still happening in the world today. So it's a movie that was that rightfully deserves its status as a classic. Lastly, so we get onto the other movie, the special effects. Now at the time they must have been that great. I mean, for my memory of them, they're still like top notch. To this day, I still think they're top notch. Even though the stop motion for Ed 209 when he's going down the stairs is a little bit outdated, I still think that's fantastic. What do you guys think about it now seeing it in, obviously we watched it in the 90s, but now in 2020, how do you guys find it? Well, if you look at take away the special effects, but you look at the makeup and all that, and also just the props, it was amazing. I think Tim was talking about it before. When he takes off his mask, his face just looks like it's stapled onto the machine. And you look at him, even if it was like a bulky rubber suit, it actually looked like it was metallic as they were just firing upon him. And I think Peter Weller did a really good job in terms of his really stiff, bulky movements. It just looked like it was a tank. So it did really well in that department when it came to like makeup and costume. And I kind of put that into like the whole. I'll put that. That's kind of the whole. I'll put that in the special effects thing. Yeah, I mean, so many things went into this, but the suit was just magnificent. Especially like seeing like the leg open up where the gun's holstered. That was up to now awesome. I think like apart from Ed 209's stop motion animation, I think a lot of this still holds up. And Ben, you did mention that, like, with the movement, I think I read somewhere as well that there was a lot of training that went into that to make him look like he was a robot. And, it was delayed by, I think, a month because the suit was very restricting, and then they had
Yeah.
Peter Weller had to take time to learn how to do it, and bless him for it, because like I know they were late when they filmed it, but you got a really great movie because of it, right? I mean, that suit is iconic.
There is nothing about like, you know, the movement that is off. Like, it rarely ever sort of breaks whatever they've defined what they think a robot cop should move like. You know, just, and it's subtle, like, you know, even just the way that he moves his head, or like, you know, how he sort of like twitches to turn around. I think the only time where it sort of like got a bit weak for me was when, and this isn't a dig at the movie, but it was when he was being shot at by all the cops in their efforts to try and stop him and bring him down. That's where he started moving a bit more like a human. That's what I thought. But like, yeah, like the special effects wise, it still holds up. And even though, like, you know, technology has progressed so much more in this day and age, I still get a kick out of seeing, you know, like what his vision should look like. So like that was obviously high tech back in the day. You know, like when he's like digging into the computer systems, like, so he's got like what looks like a Wolverine type claw, but he sticks that into the machine in order to search through files and what have you. And then, you know, it starts doing facial recognition stuff like that. Like it does look laughable by today's standards, but absolutely love this movie. I absolutely love it.
That whole scene when he sticks the spike out, I mean, the guy's face, ooh, like that, you know, that was, that's always funny to look at.
What do you guys think of that entire gunfight though in the drug lab?
One of the greatest action sequences of all time, I reckon. It's like point and shoot. It was already programmed. It's like they were just sitting ducks for me. I just thought it was fantastic the way they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you go.
Ben, do you want to? No, you go.
No, I was just saying, it's crazy, just like the moment that when he enters in, and I think up until that point, you feel that the police were just outgunned and outmanned, and he just becomes like a one-man army / tank, and he just can't miss. Anywhere he points, he's just shooting people down, he's just throwing people across the room and stuff. Yeah. And I think you're rooting for him as well, because, you know, he's just throwing Clarence around. Like, even, yeah, that little, how defiant Clarence was when he lifts him up and he spits in his face.
That's all bloody too.
Yeah. So.
I did like the poses. The poses were fantastic. Like, there's this one bit where the camera stops on him and like he just sort of like strikes this pose even amid gunfire, and then he, you know, proceeds to take everyone out. But I think one of the things that I never picked up on as a kid, which I picked up on now, not because of any sort of reason, but it just stood out. He's about to charge into this place, like, you know, they're all notified of it, but then, like, when everyone's scrambling into position to, you know, like to face the threat, there's one of these henchmen, and then when he gets into position, like a whole bunch of, well, you know, in the movie, the cocaine, it just sprays up in the air over him. So I'm just thinking, as soon as I see the coke land on this dude, I'm thinking, this guy's completely fucked. He's taken out of this entire gunfight. He's going to be running for about 50 kilometers in the opposite direction. Man. Nothing is going to stop this guy. But he still manages to partake in this gunfight and get slaughtered. But yeah, like, again, I'm calling bullshit on it, because if you're that loaded up on coke, he's most likely going to be sustaining at least 50 bullets before he finally feels it or succumbs to injury.
Well, we've talked about how good the original was, so let's move on to the remake in 2014. So, what did you guys first... Obviously, we saw trailers of it for this one, but what were your first thoughts of when you first saw the trailer and when you initially were going to go see it?
Everything's just so different, because technology's more advanced, and yeah, I guess, like, in terms of his movements and stuff, like, it was just so smooth and quick. Because the original Robocop was like a tank. Like in this one, the action was so slick. I guess he was more kind of like a sports car, like a Ferrari or like a Jaguar. So
Yeah,
yeah,
certainly
I was
is.
kind of, yeah, I was really actually pumped in terms of looking at the trailer because I was such a fan of the original.
I was I was more or less the same. I remembered wanting to see it, and like it had been so long since I'd seen the original, and in fact, just the other night was the first time that I'd seen the original in full in such a long time. But like with the remake, as they're gearing up to release it, saw the trailer, saw that Joel Kinnaman was in it, and yeah, I was already a big fan of Joel Kinnaman at that point, just based off of his work in The Killing. Plays a cool cop who worked in narcotics and that. So, like seeing him move from that role in a police procedural to this, like it seemed like a very natural fit. But yeah, like trailer wise, I was just like, yeah, it got me interested at the time.
For me, I remember when I announced it, I was like, how the hell are you going to, remake this classic? And I thought, you know what? I said that about Batman Begins, and that turned out to be really great. The moment I saw the trailer, though, I went into this thinking this is going to be a turkey. I didn't like the trailer. I don't know. I don't know what it was about the trailer. Like, it might have been the fact that it just didn't look violent. It didn't look anything new. Anything worth watching. But the only thing I took about is that Michael Keaton was in it, and I was just like, if Keaton's in it, I'm going to watch it. So, because I love.
What if I told you the movie was from Guy Ritchie?
Ooh.
Callbacks.
I don't know. Guy Ritchie directed it. Could be a different conversation right now.
Well, like if you told him that Guy Ritchie directed it, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, like it makes so much more sense." Like he does this thing where he slows down and speeds stuff up. Oh yeah, that totally makes more sense. I understand it now.
Yeah, and the quick cuts between like toilet and all that stuff.
Just all the smash cutting.
Yeah.
It's like, well, joke's on you, Dan. That's not what he didn't direct it. Oh, okay, all right. I'll just walk back what I said.
Well,
yeah.
who directed it? Jose Oh man, Padilla? Is it?
Yeah. Padilla or Padilla, I think.
Yeah. I don't know who the director is. Like, I don't know any of his movies, but what's interesting enough though is the original writers, Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner wrote this as well. So, I mean, when I found that out, that was like, okay, they did a good job on the original. Hopefully they can do a good one on this one, but we'll tackle into that. So, how do you think of the story of this one compared to the original? Because obviously it's a completely different story. What did you think?
I mean, like main points are still there. Big corporation. They want to figure out a way to get their product into the States. I guess that was the main thing because, like as you see in the opening, they've had a lot of success with regards to having their robots overseas, but then they've struggled because there's government resistance to them having a robot in the US. Ultimately, yeah, I mean, you've got the hero cop played by Joel Kinnaman. He there's an attempt on his life. He doesn't die. And yep, they see this as an opportunity to put man inside a machine so that they can get around the government obstacles. And yeah, I mean, yes, and then I mean the same sort of things happen. You just see, you see him exacting his revenge on the people that killed him. It has the same beats, just not nearly as polished as much as it tries to be. It's not nearly as polished as the original.
Well, I think what hurts it a little bit, but I like what they've done with it. The fact that there's no ads in it, but you've got the commentary with Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Novak?
Yeah, Novak. Pat Novak. There you go. Novak. That was a different choice. That was an interesting choice, and I think that works more now than if they were to do the exact same thing with ads. I don't think that's going to work anymore. But the fact that it was like the O'Reilly factor that show on Fox News. I think it's very similar to that. I think that was more relevant now. and that for me worked a lot with this film, especially with the ending.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said, Dan. I think in the original where there was an emphasis on just ads and just getting people to buy stuff, I mean, there's much more influence now when it comes to the media and social media. And you can see that it was really biased in the way that he was presenting things, and that's because of being controlled by big corporations. So, yeah, I still think it's still, because you can see it's almost ridiculous how biased he was, that it was also a satire in that as well.
Mm. Well, the only other thing that, when it came to storylines, that was very different. The fact that his son and his wife played more of a factor in it, and in some scenes it really works, but it does fall on his face a lot. And
you're saying that, like, you're saying that the family played more of a factor into this. I think even if you had like department store dummies in place of the actress and the actor who played his family, they probably would have had just as much emotion as they did.
Oh, that's a bit harsh. But you're right. Well, the
family stuff at the start just didn't work for me. I mean, the whole thing with the and we've touched on this before, but he goes home to his family. You know, he's obviously had a pretty terrible day at work. You know, his partner's gotten shot. You know, like nothing's happening with the case. He exchanges a few words with his loving wife. You know, he goes to put his boy to bed, and then boom, they're in the bedroom. They're starting to get it on. There's like very little dialogue in that. There is not enough in that for me to get invested. I mean, and yeah, all of a sudden he's taking off her top. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, Abby Cornish, she's incredibly beautiful, but you know, then it just goes straight to the car bomb sequence, and yeah, like, you know, it felt like they hadn't even written anything for the script at that point, and they were just going through the motions of setting things up so that they could go straight towards him becoming Robocop. And, you know, like, I mean, try as they might later on in the film with getting some more emotion out of them, it just felt like they were tacked on. The most effective part to that probably would have been maybe when she just stops in front of him to sort of shake him out of the trance that he's in. But that was it. Like it just, I mean, there was more effectiveness out of the missing family in the original.
Yeah, I agree with you on that as well, Tim. So I guess they're trying to humanize him more in this one. And I guess like there's much more range of emotions shown by Alex Murphy on this. But yeah, I kind of agree in terms of that. It kind of falls flat because I think Abby Cornish and the other supporting characters didn't have much to work with when it came to a script for that.
I don't think they really did. And, you know, like, I mean, they just had to make the material work as best as they could. But I found that I was enjoying the movie, even though it was a PG-13 film. Violence was very, very much toned down. There wasn't a lot of blood shed in this, as opposed to, you know, the gallons and gallons and gallons of blood in the original, which I think I loved the most. But in this, I've found, again, I really like Joel Kinnaman. I think he is leading man material.
Oh, he's fantastic.
But he hasn't found a vehicle yet that's going to net him that success where he has a lot more roles. And this movie doesn't do enough justice to his talents. But from when he's introduced up to when he has the seizure, you know, when they're downloading all of the police database and CCTV footage into him, he starts having a seizure. They put him to sleep. And as soon as they put him to sleep and remove all his emotion, the movie itself just goes on autopilot. The movie itself also goes to sleep. That was a point that I'd made to you both at one point.
Yeah. And
from that point on, I didn't really find myself caring much about the movie. You know, it just felt like then it just had to progress.
Really.
No, it just had to progress through beats and beats and beats. But, you know, like they touch on certain things in the lead up to that could have made for a more interesting movie. There's the scene where
he's going through the testing where he has to take out Jackie Earl Haley, who, again, like, this is a movie that is not deserving of his talents. Someone the man who played Rorschach in Watchmen, that was a magnificent movie, magnificent role. But then when you put him in this and he's just playing generic villain number one, yeah, it just doesn't work. But at that point, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But the point that I'm trying to make is, at that point in the movie, they have this discussion about how they've removed certain things in his brain so that he can make decisions faster. But really, it's actually the machine that's taken over, and he's just a passenger. And that sort of debate over, who's more in control, machine or man, that's something that they touch on, but they don't really get into that much. The only thing that really happens later on is after he's been chemically induced into not feeling anything, his humanity overrides things. But I just think that it was quite ham-fisted in how they did that when, after his wife stops him in the road to tell him about his son. Yeah, so like it was a bit ham-fisted with what they did there. But I think the best scene in the entire movie would have to be where they strip away everything, they remove all the armor, they show all that's left of him is the right hand, as well as like, some of his organs, and he's like saying, "Oh Christ, like, there's nothing left." Just the emoting in that entire scene, I thought was on par with just some of the emotiveness in the original, and I thought it was great.
I love that. I love that scene for one and only thing. In the original movie, they shot off the right hand, and in this one, he's got his right hand.
Yeah.
That was a great callback.
It was a callback, but do you think that at the same time it was sort of them just being, "Hey, look, this is what we're doing different with our portrayal of RoboCop in our reboot or remake"?
I don't know. I'd say it never occurred to me, but when you say it like that, I got to say, yeah, I would say that would be 100% correct.
Would it help you if I told you that Guy Ritchie made the choice to keep that hand in?
Moving on.
Okay, all right, I'll bring it back. Yeah, like that particular scene, like when he says "You should just let me die," I thought, whoa, this movie has gotten a lot darker than it would have led me to believe. Like I was happy with this being just an typical sci-fi action movie for the summer or whatever. But yeah, when they put that in there, I was like, wow, this could be. Imagine if they actually, towards the end, they just say, okay, yep. He goes, "This is my decision. This is me, human being in control of the decision, no longer the machine." And if they actually let him euthanize himself, that would have made for a very, very different movie. But of course, this is Hollywood. This is meant to be the beginning of a new franchise. This was meant to kickstart it. So of course, the hero lives to see another day.
Yeah, and there was meant to be a sequel, but it's not going to happen. They're actually going to do a sequel to the original movie now. So anything that's came out, so Robocop 2, Robocop 3, Prime Directives, they're all going to be erased from canon. That's what they're going to do with this new movie.
Man, and Robocop 3 is Ben's favorite.
Yeah, especially with the jetpack. You love that bit.
Yeah, sure. And the hand for a gun. The gun for a hand, sorry, was it? Yeah.
All jokes aside, I remember you saying that you loved that bit in the Frank Miller's RoboCop. So don't make it look like you're you're just joking that you liked it, because you did.
I found that like this movie, when they try to bring it back to saying, well, look, this is what the original did, and we're going to try and put those sorts of, we're going to put those callbacks into this movie. Like to me, it just fell flat. So like Jackie Earl Haley, he says, I wouldn't buy that for $1. And at that point I was just like, oh, this is like, shut up.
The classic line, it just didn't work with that film.
Yeah. And then, I mean, even, look, as much as, again, I really love Joel Kinnaman. He's a great actor, but even the bit where like, he's trying to overcome the programming and he's like, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me," like really struggling while he's trying to lift the gun. Like, it just spoke to the impotence of the scene. Like, he literally could not get the arm up. He couldn't get it up. And then, even when he's trying to say, he's trying to fight off the programming, he's saying, yeah, like, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." This movie's just lost me completely. Like, I was enjoying it, but then everything else just, it was very hollow.
Yeah.
And we haven't spoken so much about the action sequences, but some of the action was serviceable. in an effort to make this character look sleeker, I just found that it became too Hollywood. You know, they leaned too heavily into the special effects. They leaned too heavily into the highly choreographed gunplay. You know, and instead of one Ed 209 terrorizing us, you know, you've got at least three in the final shootout. And even that was so short. Like, it just did not, like, you know, he races into the building, and then no sooner has he done that, he hasn't even dispatched them. He's hobbled off because Lewis has come in to save him. And yeah, like, I just didn't like it. And they
changed Lewis from being a woman to a guy. You know? And
he doesn't even factor into this that much.
Yeah.
You know, like, he gets taken out at the beginning, then he utters quite possibly the worst line in the entire film. They're like, "Oh, what is this? Good cop, bad cop?" He goes, "No, bad cop, Robocop." Like, oh, this sucks. Like, that was just this is the drizzling shits. As soon as you hear that, I was just, again, like, this movie, this is lost on me. I know it's meant to appeal to old fans as well as create some new fans, but yeah, I don't think this is going to win over too many of the old fans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing that really got me, just the ending. It's shocking. There's no impact. Like, in the original, he kills Dick Jones and gets shot out. He falls out of the building. This one, the guy just gets shot. I can't even remember the character's name now. It was Michael Keaton's character.
It was, yeah. Do you think that a lot of it had to do with the fact that they made the poor decision to turn this into a PG-13 film instead of a hard R-rated picture?
No, I don't. I think it's because they wanted to try something different. You know, because, like, everything about this movie is different. You know, from the script, from the characters, and even to the suit. But I think they just want to go in a new direction and see what sticks. I mean, really good example. I'm going to get off topic for a second. Like what they did with Star-Lord in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He was always a sort of a badass, but he wasn't comedic. But they tried it with the comedic the tone of it, and then look, it's a different version of this character, but people love that one. And I think that's what they were trying to do here, but it just fell flat.
Yeah, like, I think, Ben, you said that they're portraying him more of the human side to him before. I thought that was a really interesting point.
Yeah, I think in the original, what worked well was that Peter Weller played up a lot when he was Robocop just as a machine. And it wasn't only until, I guess, when he gets shot up by the cops at the car park, and then he has that final stand-up with with Clarence's gang, that he starts to show more of his humanity side. But this one, I think they're trying to make it look like that he never really lost his humanity, that the machine was just more like an enhancement. But then, like what you were saying before, Tim, you know, it got to a point where, like, who was more in control? Was it the machine part of him, or was it the human part of him? So yeah, they could have gone through it much more, but they didn't, which was a shame. Yeah, overall, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it as like a blockbuster film in the cinema with like good set pieces and stuff like that. I mean, that final battle with the 2 or 380 209s was pretty cool. Yeah, I guess his battle with forgot what the ginger guy's name was. That was pretty. That was a bit of a letdown, and I guess I guess like Michael Keaton could have came back for a second, but I kind of felt like that he got asked to be killed off because he didn't want to be in the sequel.
That bit where he takes out the guy that was responsible for killing him, Antoine Vallon. That's his name.
That's right.
So like, you know, you couldn't really see much, and I know that they were trying to be inventive within the rating restriction. So you only caught glimpses of things where, you know, like, it's lit up by periodic gunfire, but then that switches to thermal imaging. I didn't care for it. Like, I really did not care for how they did that action sequence, and I found it infuriating because it wasn't as clear. You know, when you compare that to the drug lab gunfight in the original, that's really well lit up. It's broad daylight. you see the action as it's unfolding. This one, it's like all these really quick cuts, very similar to what Guy Ritchie does. But
Gosh. That's gonna haunt me.
Callbacks.
That's gonna haunt me on this podcast for the rest of this life.
Callbacks.
Gosh.
But the quick cuts, like, it was very unintelligible. Couldn't really keep a solid track of the action. You move far too sleek for my liking, and yeah, like it didn't really have any weight behind it. It was just another hollow action piece in a long line of them from so many other movies. So yeah, like, I mean, they were only able to do so much, and then yeah, by the time the movie ended, at least on this second viewing, because I've only seen the movie twice now. Yeah, on this second viewing, I was not really satisfied by it.
I think the only one we haven't really touched upon was Dr. Norton as well, which was what's his name? Gary Oldman. Thank you, Gary Oldman. Love Gary Oldman. This one, I just find him. All he was doing is just saying, "Alex, Alex." That's it. Like, everything else about him, like, I could see what they're trying to do with the character and make him very sympathetic, and like he's on Robocop's side, but it just felt like a whiny mum being overprotective of their child to me.
I don't think this movie has nearly as many quotable quotes.
Is there any quotable quotes in it?
Well, yeah, they tried to recycle ones from the original, but yeah.
No, I mean like original ones though. Just talking about original.
Maybe when Alex says, "Hey Doc, what happens if I shoot a tiny asshole in an exosuit?" I thought that was humorous.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It's quite good, but there wasn't nearly anything as quotable in this.
No, but like, it's not a terrible film. Like it's watchable, but because we're fans, and obviously we love the original so much. I think if we had not watched the original, I think we may have gone into this with different eyes if we had never seen the original. I think we may give it more props to what it is, because I could see so many things about it that are great, but it's just like when you compare it to the original, it's just like, nah, just doesn't do it.
Yeah, it just pales in comparison. And I watched this immediately after I rewatched the original. I was like, oh man, I'm going to town with these, with the things that I'm picking out for this movie. And it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional, but it is definitely weaker compared to the original.
All right. Well, I mean,
I think you said one thing. Oh, sorry, man. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
I think you said one thing and this is really important. You went with your niece, I think, to watch The Lion King. The most recent.
No. My auntie went. No, so not me.
Yes,
but I watched it with her though.
Yeah, and so they saw the live action before they saw the original.
Yeah.
And for some reason, some very terrible reason, I don't know why, but they loved the live action more than the original animated film.
Oh, it broke my heart when Kitten looked at me and she's like, "This is the Lion King," and I was like, "No, this is terrible." So I was like, I turned it off and I popped in the original, and she's like, "What's this?" I was just like, "This is the Lion King," and she goes, "No, it's not." Wait. Oh. I just wanted to die. It was just it. This is terrible.
Yeah, see, like that's what I would want to avoid if I was to show this to my daughter. Not that she's going to be watching Robocop anytime soon, but in this era of remakes and reboots and what have you, a lot of the newer stuff really cannot compare to what's come before it. Robocop 1, just, oh man, classic, instant classic for me, and for many, as a matter of fact. But
well, it goes down to story, characters, costume, score. That one ticks all of it. While this one, it does the score, but it does like a really, really bad version of it, and like even the title card's crap. It just lights up, and then all of a sudden, bang, like that. But the biggest thing, because we got to wrap it up. But I have a problem with this movie is the suit. It just doesn't look. I don't know. Maybe it's because I love 80s style of thinking, but it's just because he's so scrawny. He doesn't look that tough. But you made a interesting comment when we were talking about this about the helmet. Do you want to share that with the audience? 'Cause I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, like when I was jotting down notes, I couldn't help but think that as soon as the helmet slid down to engage battle mode, it looked like it looked either like a dolphin's head or a xenomorph's head. Probably more of a xenomorph because of the black coloring. And as soon as I just thought, oh, this is bad. I'm not going to be able to recover from seeing this. Like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm gonna watch it later tonight, and I'm probably just gonna have a good laugh at it. Well, I guess that's it. What are we gonna do? Do we think the new one's cool, or do we just think it's average?
I say it's average, but I enjoyed it though. I mean, it's not a thing I'll watch repeatedly over and over again.
Yeah.
It'll probably be something dumb and stupid I play in the background while I'm doing something else. True story. I'm actually with crap in the background, so yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't mind it, and like even though I feel like I've torn it to shreds, you could tell that they really, really tried, and it ended up being better than anyone could have hoped for it to have been. It's certainly not an instant classic, but because it has enough of that somewhat, it calls some nostalgia into it, I guess. And, like if you have a love for the original character and you want to see how, other people have tried to update the original, yeah, like it's worth a look at least.
Yeah.
I first, I'll admit that the first time I saw this, I thought, you know what, not bad. I didn't mind it.
Mm.
But yeah, like again, I think like once rewatching the original and then rewatching this immediately after, yeah, it just pales so much. And yeah, it's an effort that feels like, they come up short.
I feel the same. I'd say it's above average. I wouldn't say it's average. I'd say it's above average simply because it's got Keaton in it, and I love Keaton in anything he does. But you're not going to beat the original on this one, just like we did on the previous episode with Aladdin. Obviously, the original's going to win this one. Hopefully, we find something in future episodes that's going to be better than the original. At this point, I don't know. I don't think there is.
I think it's very slim pickings if we're going to try and find something that was better than the original.
We'll see. Hopefully, we'll find something.
All
right. Well, thank you.
In the next episode.
Sorry.
In the next episode, you tell us about how much you love the live-action remake of Lion King.
I think we might do another versus on Lion King because I've got a lot to say about that. Yeah. But thank you everybody for joining us. We like to thank also our producer Ziggy for his lovely work on this episode and the last few episodes. Yeah, so until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Be safe.
All right. Peace, guys. Take care.
See you guys.